Good afternoon and welcome to the January Accelerating Innovation Standing Committee meeting. I'm Jennifer Stafford. I'm the Director in the Division of Assessment Accountability Support, and we welcome you to this exciting new standing committee. I want to welcome everyone back who was with us during the November Kentucky United We Learn Council kickoff meeting. We had an in-person meeting at that time, and so we welcome all of you back. For those of you that are new to the committee or who are watching via the media portal or watching a recorded video, we welcome you to our January meeting. This is the first in many of our meetings that will happen throughout the 2023 year. We're very excited to start and get progress on our standing committee. We've got an exciting agenda today that we are going to follow. The first of which is our roll call. So there are several announcements that we need to go through to provide our members directions on how to conduct virtual meetings. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Chandler, who's going to take us through how to take roll and attendance, and then how that we should progress through holding a virtual meeting. So Melissa.
I cannot hear Melissa. I don't know. Melissa, I cannot hear you. Do you mind maybe checking?
I'm not hearing Melissa either.
Melissa looks like she might be frozen.
Yeah, right. I was like, did I freeze it?
She's not moved in approximately 15 seconds. So
okay. All right. Well, so without Melissa, we have protocols in which we have to follow for virtual meetings. For a virtual meeting, all of the members must keep their video on and mute their mic and while they are not talking. So members, if you would please open up your cameras and keep them on at all times. If you are speaking, then what we do ask is you unmute, state your name, give it a little pause so that the technology can keep up with you, and pull your video up, and then begin speaking. So when you're finished talking, then mute your mic back. For the facilitators, for the people that are presenting, we don't have to keep our cameras on all the time because we can save bandwidth for that. So if you see us go off, it's to save our bandwidth during that time frame. We do have a link for attendance that we can put into chat. So what I will do is I will see if Melissa has that for us. Actually, she has put it in chat for us. So she, if you could use the link that she has put in there, and what I will do is I will copy it again into the chat in case you came in afterwards. Okay, I put it in there again. So please use
it looks like folks are needing to just the permissions changed on that form. Seems like you see that.
Okay.
Jennifer, would it be the same if everyone just typed their name into the chat and then maybe Melissa could transfer that over to the forum when it becomes available?
It absolutely could. Absolutely could. So why don't we do that? I was just trying to see if I could do it real quick where I have some permissions on that. So yes, let's go ahead and what Melissa can do is go ahead and transfer that over. So if you would put your name in the chat so that we can gather your attendance here.
Jennifer, this is Kathy Stovall. Are you all able to see me?
We can hear you just fine. However, when you come up, the screen is just black with your name.
Okay, I'm not for sure what's going on. Actually, I'm not connecting from my computer. I'm connecting from my phone, and it's not allowing me to join the meeting from my computer, but from my phone, I'm having no problem.
So perhaps, Kathy, you could turn on your camera on the one that's working, but yet use your audio for your phone. Is that a possibility?
It's on. Everything is on. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll keep working on it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, I see the meeting chat. People are putting their names in. Melissa, I see you now are unfrozen. I gave a little preview about how to conduct virtual meetings. Do you want to go through that just in case I missed something? I cannot hear you. Okay, I think that I covered everything about the virtual meetings that are required. So basically, make sure members, if you would keep your cameras on, and then when you are ready to speak, then just open your mic and state your name first. So that's great. I wanted to take the opportunity for those that were not able to be in person on the second day of the Kentucky United We Learn council meeting, because that's when our Accelerating Innovation Committee met as a large group. And several of you were not able to be in the room at the time and introduce yourself. For either you were not there, or you are new to the council and new to our standing committee. So I wanted to start with the opportunity for us to be able to meet our new members, if that is possibility that we can ask you to open your mic and introduce yourself. And I'll start with, and I'm not going to call you out, but Eamon Couch, you were the newest member of our committee, or the first new member of our committee after the Kentucky Cool Council kickoff. So can I ask you to unmute and introduce yourself, because I do see you here.
I would love that. Thanks, Jennifer. What a pleasure it is to be with you today. My name is Eamon Couch. I'm a recovering retired superintendent. spent 2 different districts in rural southeastern Kentucky. And so I'm the Associate Vice President for Partners for Rural Impact, who used to be Partners for Education at Berea College. But we serve about 50,000 kids in Eastern Kentucky. We have direct service providers in 31 different counties of Eastern Kentucky. And I love learning and doing innovative things and partnering with people. And that's what our organization does. And so that's why I'm so excited to be here. I think we're going to make great relationships and great friendships and partnerships here, and just thrilled about that. So Jennifer, thank you for the chance to get to share a little bit.
Well, and thank you for your interest in being part of our standing committee. So I think that you are exactly right. We've got a wonderful group of very motivated individuals. So I think you're going to fit right into the group. Others that either were not there during that second day that would like to open their mics and introduce themselves.
I can. Hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, good afternoon, Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Edlin. I currently serve as Miss Kentucky, and I go all across the states and visit schools. But amongst that, I'm a former teacher, a middle school teacher, and a current graduate student at the University of Kentucky. And I was also recently elected to the Covington School Board. And I'm super excited to be working with you all on all the exciting things that we've got going on.
Well, thank you, and welcome to our group as well. We look forward to getting to know you and your perspective on our standing committee. Anyone else?
I can go next.
Sure.
My name is Laura Lynn Randall. I'm a former teacher of the visually impaired and orientation mobility specialist throughout the Midwest. I relocated to Kentucky about 2 years ago now, and I work for the American Printing House for the Blind. So I make sure that tests and assessments and curriculum and things like that are accessible for our students with a visual impairment.
Great. Welcome, Laura Lynn. We really appreciate you being here as well. We look forward to getting to know you and your valuable input. Anyone else?
Hey, I was also not able to be in person at our initial meeting, but my name's Will Powers. I'm a student at Occidental College, which is in Los Angeles, which is where I am now. So I'm 3 hours behind you all, but I'm originally from Somerset, Kentucky, and I've kind of helped with a number of student voice initiatives with the Kentucky Student Voice Team, on the Kentucky Commissioner of Education Student Advisory Council, and now I work with the Brookings Institution Center for Universal Education, and I do some innovative financing projects with Blue Haven Initiative, which we primarily work on education projects in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm hoping to bring my kind of international perspective back to my work in Kentucky. And I'm really excited to be reconnecting with my home state.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any others? Any others that have not? I think that does it. Okay, well, I want to share the agenda and go through the agenda just really quickly, because that does it for the welcome and introductions. We're going to talk next about the interim chair and chair positions that we have. Then I'll turn it over to Andre Rupp for the developing the plan around the charter. It's a work in progress, as well as the developing the work streams for our 6-month plan or our goals. Susan Lyon's going to take us through that, and then talk through any next steps that we have. We have, first I want to talk through the interim chair and chair positions. And I'd like to say congratulations to Kathy Stovall for being our chair and being elected to our chair position. She is hit the ground running already. We got to meet with her, and she has provided input on the direction of our meeting today and some valuable input. So congratulations to Kathy and welcome to your new leadership position.
Thank you.
And we had a turn of events for our interim chair. At the onset, Betty Edwards had expressed interest in the interim chair position. And when she saw the passionate letters that both Kathy and Sarah Hatton presented and submitted for the leadership position of chair, she was so moved by their passion that she humbly wanted to step aside and give others a chance to lead. And so I want to thank Betty very much for her interest in leadership and recognizing that there are others who are just as passionate as she is. And so, Betty, we thank you so much for your willingness to lead and your humbleness of doing so. So with Betty's withdrawal of her letter of interest for the interim chair, we are left at this point without an interim chair. Now, Sarah Hatton had expressed interest in being obviously the chair position. And when Betty stepped aside, Sarah has expressed a desire to be the interim chair. So at this point, I want to turn to our committee and ask you how you would like to proceed with an election of an interim chair. So let me pause there and see if you have any thoughts about how to proceed with an interim chair position. So let's see. I'm going to try to monitor chat.
I guess, were there any other people other than Sarah who had gone, like, who, to me, if there's only one candidate, then do we need to have a formal election, or can it just be there was one other and we need an interim? So that makes sense.
I think that we need to ask the group if that's okay. If Cassie, I think that that's a direction that we could go. I think that we could, by raise of hand or by some symbol here in Zoom, by giving a reaction for hands up or a thumbs up, or we could, if we wanted to have the election. I want to think that we have a quorum here. Melissa, can you tell me in chat whether we have a quorum of our group or not? I think that we do, just by my quick observation. Okay, so Melissa says we do have a quorum. So we could go ahead if we want to entertain a vote for her for an interim chair. We could go ahead and do that. we could ask if there is anybody else interested in interim chair right now. So
Jennifer, I understand that the election was very close. I completely think it would be wonderful to go ahead and give the interim chair to Sarah. But that's my feeling.
okay, great. Thank you, Betty. And I see Hannah has also put in chat that she is in favor of electing a chair. So. And Darlene says she's in favor of going ahead with electing Sarah, and Jerry agrees. Okay, great. I'm seeing lots of good chat here that they're in agreement with that. So let's see if let's go ahead then if you would give a signal of your somewhere in your reactions of a thumbs up. And Melissa, can you take those and make sure that we get a thumbs up? So all of our members, please vote for whether you agree to elect Sarah. So just give a thumbs up or not. Okay. I think that does it. I saw all thumbs up right now. So Sarah, congratulations to you. We have an interim chair position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
About this work. And thank you, Betty. Like, I appreciate it. I'm excited about working closely with you as well as we go through this.
Yes, Betty, you were not off the hook for your guidance and leadership. So we look forward to that as well.
Whatever I can do, I'm here.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that is our welcome and introductions. That is our chair and interim chair positions. We now have a full leadership group for our Accelerating Innovation Standing Committee. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Andre for our chartering process.
That is fabulous. Whoever initiated the meeting, please make sure that I can share my screen on my end as well. I can't see that yet, and I don't want to immediately do this. So first of all, hello, everyone. My name is Andre Rupp, for those of you who either may not remember who I am or see me for the first time. I work with the Center for Assessment, so Brian is my colleague. Hello, Brian. Susan Lyons used to be at the center, so she's kind of also an indirect current colleague, and we work together along with Sandy Student in the technical quality in this committee to support facilitate the workings of the committee, and in particular advise on issues of technical quality for assessments and accountability systems writ large. And we see this obviously as a broad encompassing endeavor, and not just sort of narrowly in terms of like standardized assessment and accountability systems as they exist currently. My background, very quickly, is I used to work as a tenured professor in educational measurement and research methodology, University of Maryland, so you can find me there, taught classes for master's and PhD students. I worked for the Educational Testing Service as a research director on automated scoring and innovative assessments. And I worked in a school district in New York City as an assessment and accountability leader. Now I'm at the Center for Assessment, and that's how I am here in this environment. And I'm really, really happy to work with all of you. Today, my role is very simple. I'm trying to help us navigate the chartering process for this particular committee. And so what I like to do is I'd like to first of all show you the information that we currently have access to and that you all have access to, because I always feel like it's important to just get a sense of a lay of the land of relevant pieces of information, and then propose a quick way of how we can move this forward by both being thoughtful and collaborative, but also being pragmatic, right? To get to move this along in a way that actually helps the committee function. So that's what I'm going to do, and then you can, chime in and give us your feedback, your suggestions. We are very open to that. So these are just some initial ideas that hopefully resonate with you. All right, let me share my screen. All right, so I hope that you can now all see a folder. This is the folder with the information that pertains to our standing committee. There's actually, just so that you all know, there's actually two versions of this. There's also a version that we have internally in our standing committee on a different drive, where we can sort of do some iteration before we share documents officially with you. This is the one that all the Cool Council members have access to, so that's a specific subspace in the cloud. And in this folder for the Acceleration Innovation Committee here, you can see that there's two subfolders. One is for 2022. That one is pretty lean, given that we only started in 2022. But there's a subfolder for the election of the officers. And then there is a subfolder for the actual Cool Council meeting that we had in November. And in that, you could find the slides that were used for this committee, and a folder with transcriptions. And I'm going to get back to the transcriptions because I put them also in the chartering process folder for ease of reference, and it's the same information, so I want to talk about that there. So going back to the main folder, Accelerating Innovation, we're here today, January 9th virtual meeting. So this is our meeting today. You can see there's a document for a 6-month work plan. That's Susan's going to talk about that a little bit later. That's about the kind of deliverables and goals for the work that we're going to set for ourselves in the next 6 months. This is the agenda for today, and I'm going to focus on the subfolder that I've created here called Chartering Process. So let's take a look and see what's in this, just so we're all on the same page. So this work plan document that I'm going to open up briefly is an overview document. Think of it kind of like a README document of the information that is here. The most important sources of information are really three things. The first one is that we currently have a draft of a charter document. So this is here called the AISC, that stands for Accelerating Innovation Standing Committee, just a little bit shorter to write. It's called version 0.4 because, you know, how they do that with software, right? It's not even the first official version that we've all signed off on. It's sort of like a pre-version of the first official version. So, you know, 0.4, 0.5, we had a few prior versions internally. So that's that. And if you open that, what you see is it's a charter document that uses a template that is commonly agreed upon, or is common across the three standing committees that we have for this work project. So in this is statements that are derived from either, you know, the general grant application that we had, conversations that have been had, and the feedback that you've provided doing the Cool Council meeting. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So you can see here there's slots for like, what's the mission? There's a slot for goals, and that, you know, that'll eventually be hyperlinked probably with this month's standing goal plan. This is the BHAC language that we had co-developed, for example. Some language about memberships, positions, connections, cadence of the meetings, the projects that we might be engaging in, something about how we go about our work, how voting might take place, and how we engage with one another. And by just scanning this, right, you can see that there's a few places where there's an XXX. So here's one of those. And the axis XX, this typically means, hey, this is draft language. This is essentially to get this process started. And then, of course, it should be in the committee's voice, and specifically also in the chair and co-chair's voice along with that, because Kathy and Sarah, you have to really also feel like you own that language and it makes sense to you and it represents what you want that to look like. But it's always good to have something to get started. That is at least the so that was the belief here in creating this. And it's also already in the format that the other committees wanted, so that hopefully saves a little bit of time. Now, the second piece of information, I'm going to go into this folder here called Transcriptions from the School Council Meeting, is a variety of really, really brief documents, they're typically just a page. And these were the transcriptions of the notes that, or the work products that you had created during the School Council meeting. You may remember that for those of you who were there were worksheets on walls, and you started writing, you started thinking about, how should we incorporate member voices? What should member roles for our committee be? How might we coordinate? And there were discussions being had, notes being taken, and these are the transcriptions of those. So it's like, it's not quite, the rawest form, because the rawest form, I guess, would be a photo, but it's pretty close to that. And so I'll give you an example just so that you have a sense of this. So if you click on member voices, we'll just do this. This is what that looks like, right? So in that conversation, there were some key principles being articulated, something like use comments on work products to agree, share concerns, and avoid deleting others' work. And in the current draft of that charter that I showed you earlier, these kind of statements are already included. So I think as far as that's concerned, my personal thinking there is that, if Sarah and Kathy just did a quick read, and then maybe those who want to volunteer to support them, we'll talk about that in a minute, just maybe do a quick cross-referencing if you want to convince yourself that I didn't lose anything or didn't corrupt anything as I was sort of translating that, but that should essentially be already done. There's another piece here that is a parking lot document that was sort of the thoughts that, or questions that you had about some of the lines of work. Some of that is sort of charter relevant, and whenever that was, I put that in there. But there's also other considerations that we don't want to lose, but I didn't feel I could always put them in the charter document proper. So that's something to think about when you look at this. We also, we in this case being, I remember Jennifer and I, we sat there one evening and we translated or transcribed all the stickies. I don't know whether you remember, there were a bunch of stickies that people had created doing these activities as they were sort of expressing their interest to this committee during the day, doing both days really. And it was stickies around like, what am I thinking about? What am I learning from these presentations? Stuff like that. So this document contains all of those for the people that identified with our committee. So you can see here, there was like shout outs for the different school districts who had presented. Then down here, there were statements from what people learned, I wondered. And so some of these could certainly be incorporated further into the chartering process document as sort of like goals or principles. Others may just be here as questions, and others are just sort of like maybe just trigger some memory for some of you in case you wanted to look at those. But those are here as well, so that you know that this didn't get lost. And then the final document I want to quickly point out is this one here, the FAQs, frequently asked questions, written for this particular meeting. So this is in many ways, it's a different kind of expression of some of the things that we all need to wrestle with and need to resolve. Some of these, if you had answers to them, you could write them as sort of organizing statements into the charter. Others are sort of like minor logistical issues that may just need an answer. But you can see here, there's some questions that we compiled. Some of them are very general, like, hey, how many members does this committee currently have? What is the time commitment that we are expected to provide, right? Those are questions that we start discussing. Will there be profiles of members that we can access? Things like that. Meetings, how often will we meet? How will we meet? What technology will we be using? Collaboration, what programs might we be using? Can I choose who I collaborate with? All of that kind of stuff. And then at the very end here, under miscellaneous, you can see I took some of the comments here from the parking lot that document that you saw earlier. And those that I felt I could interpret into a question, I put those here. And so that is also a starting point for that. So anything that you disagree with here, you can blame me and say, Andre may have misinterpreted that, and correct it, obviously. So now where does that leave us? So let me open the work plan for charter. This is not particularly convoluted, hopefully. So this is just saying, look, there's these documents or folders that I just talked about. So there's this charter document that is sort of the most current version of the charter. The goal would be to work on that and eventually have that document in an at least final state as version 1. And then I think that should be revisited. That would be my recommendation. And then there's the transcriptions that I pointed out to you, the FAQs, which could live on, again, as part in the charter document, or maybe also as a separate document, maybe also eventually as a web page, since we have a website for this committee. And so here is the recommendation that we want to put on the table for you. The recommendation would be, first of all, to see whether there's anyone in this committee of the current members who would be willing to support Kathy and Sarah sort of as intermediaries, so just make their lives a little bit easier. So, you could of course negotiate that yourself, but my recommendation might be to say like, hey, if I volunteer for this, maybe we'll do this cross read of the notes that have been taken and the initial draft of the language there that we currently have in the charter document. That could be a little task, and that might be helpful. But I don't want to prescribe that. But so let's just say we should look for maybe 1 or 2 people, maybe 2 is always good, right? In case somebody is busy or is not well, who can support Kathy and Sarah in this chartering process. The recommendation here would be to do that via a quick email after this meeting, given that not everybody can attend this meeting today on the virtual call. And then set a timeline by which essentially these different sources of information get fine-tuned and reconciled, and input from the members gets obtained. Now, in an ideal world, that may not be too hard of a task initially. It may be something that can be done in a few weeks, but again, I'll let you sort of, think about that on your own. And then eventually we would have a finalized quote unquote version of the charter document. If this committee was really fast, we could have that ready by the next monthly meeting, and we could vote on it either during the meeting or after, with an open comment period. So that would be the idea, right? That ideally this gets created, then there's maybe a week where everybody can get an access to a link like we've provided here today. You can provide additional comments, they get reconciled, and assuming there's nothing that warrants particular complex discussion, then this gets finalized and it gets voted on. Given that people are busy, this may take, with all of that, perhaps 2 months. So, but even if we had this ready, I think March, at the beginning of March, or no, what is it? So yeah, beginning of March, that might be a reasonable time frame. So that's what we're proposing. These are the sources of information that are here. And I think with that, I would just like to open this up and first of all, see whether my elaboration today gave Kathy and Sarah any maybe additional thoughts or questions, or whether anybody else then has any other recommendations, ideas, thoughts, questions. Let me stop there. And if you're not sure whether you can speak, I think you could also use your raise the hand symbol, given that we have our 2 screens of people, at least on my end. So that might work. Is there anybody who has an idea for the process, questions about maybe the information that is there, a suggestion for Kathy and Sarah? Any question about like, why do we need a charter? Is this all just technocratic busy work? No, it's not. Kathy and Sarah, do you want to add anything to this? Not that you have to, but just.
Well, I had mentioned earlier when you'd sent this via email that I think it makes sense just to have it outlined clearly where we're going and how, like a more clear path of how we're going to get there. Because I know that that's helpful for me rather than just kind of discussing what we'd like to see in general. Like I feel like we did a good session of brainstorming and kind of envisioning where we wanted that work to go in the initial meeting that we had in person. And now it's time to get down to like the more specific work of what we want to do in this committee.
Right. And Sarah and Kathy, I see your hand is up too, but let me just ask a clarifying question, Sarah. So that piece about where we want to go with the committee, that to me is a discussion about like the work plan, right, for the next 6 months. So to me, that is sort of related to the chartering process, obviously, and Susan is going to kickstart that in just a second. But that's not a comment about the chartering process per se, the next steps in that, right? Or did I misunderstand that?
No, you got it. You're right.
Okay, because I mean, there's probably some clarity where you're right. And now I'm thinking through what the goals are that can be then used to refine the language a little bit in terms of like mission and types of work. So I think in that sense, it would definitely be valuable. But I just wanted to check in, see whether you had any specific questions about the next steps. Kathy, you had your hand up?
I did not have a question. I am trying to do this from my phone, and so I accidentally raised hand. I'm great with everything.
Did you say you're good with everything?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing that. Okay, so then let me just recap that quickly, what that means in terms of next steps. So after this meeting, I would say, Kathy and Sarah, you should probably write a quick email to the members and saying, you know, as far as, I mean, I could do this on your behalf also, but for now, I think you as the chair and co-chair probably makes more sense that coming from you and saying, if you have any volunteers who can help us support the process of the charting process, please let us know. Yeah, I don't think this needs to be particularly formal, although if you wanted to be more formal, you could. And then, you know, get together with them and feel free to invite me or other colleagues from the facilitators team to that. And either you or we together can think through the best next steps if you want. We can make a quick action plan for this, like quick work stream. And let me just also double check something with Jennifer and others. So I propose some deadlines here because I think it's very helpful to work toward a concrete date. And so in my most optimistic moment, I put in here February 1, but I guess it's already January 9th. It depends on how, you know, complicated or how fine-tuned people want to be with this task. I do think it can be done. You know, our next meeting will be early February. It's essentially more or less 4 weeks from now. So, I mean, I could see a place where, you know, we get to this within 2 weeks of a draft iteration, then a 1 week of a public comment, a quick refinement, and essentially the principles will be hammered out well enough that it would work for the next 3 months and then whatever, or 6 months, and then maybe we could sort of like revisit that. But it may be that March 1st will be easier for people. Is there any deadline that anyone has that is sort of like natural from other contexts, or that is sort of relevant to think about? I couldn't think of one. And if there isn't, then I would say I leave it up to you, Kathy and Sarah, to just see how fast you want to move this forward. And maybe after you've taken a look at some of the materials, maybe one more time as well. Jennifer, did you have something?
That's what I was going to say, suggest as well, Andre, that as Kathy and Sarah lead this development of the charter documentation, that the members that volunteer to work with them, that they kind of set their own schedule with the understanding that, you know, we have this goal to complete this, because the charter is essentially how we're going to work together. And so as we move forward, I think that it'll become a little bit clearer, and we can obviously go back and revise. But I think that the group that is developing it would have a better sense of their time frame. So let's ask Sarah. Kathy, does that sound like a good plan for you all?
Yes, I'm fine with emailing the committee after this meeting as over later this evening to just kind of drum up interest for who wants to work on this particular piece. And then we can make our own internal emails to set timelines for that.
Wonderful.
I agree.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I
Thank
was
you.
just saying I agree.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. One suggestion I might quickly have that is, as you were talking, I was thinking, as members who are in this committee, you might wonder, like, I'm not sure whether I want to contribute or how I can contribute. One thing that might be really helpful, since many of you have experience, right? I mean, we've been on committees, we may have led committees or co-led committees, whatever. So I feel like if there is a charter document that you have had in the past that you've worked with that has particular features or aspects, like things that you put in writing that you thought were really useful to you, I would say share that in this common folder that we have under examples. It's better, make sure that it's shareable, right? Should be public. I put some links in that document for the charter work plan. I know Donnie had shared with us a charter that I found very helpful that I want to upload there. So that might be something where you can make a quick contribution that could be really helpful. So, and on that, I would say if there's no other questions, seems like we should move on and give Susan and others the time to really work on the goals and focus on what needs to get done. Thank you all.
Thank you, Andre. Yes. Hello, everybody. I won't be talking a lot. My goal here is to really help set you all up to put you to work. And so this is a working committee after all. So hopefully we can get through the introductions to this next activity pretty quickly. For those of you who I didn't meet at the on the day that we all got together at the end of November, my name is Susan Lyons. I run a small consulting business, and I'm one of the partners on the grant that's federally funding this work. And so today we're hoping to get a good start to what our 6-month work plan is. I think this is what Sarah was alluding to a bit earlier. Like, let's figure out what are we going to learn, how are we going to learn it, how are we going to work together to get some work done. So I'm going to remind you all of what our big 6-month goal is. You might remember we had to come up with this thing called a big, hairy, audacious goal, or our BHAG, but it had to be done within the next 6 months. So with that mindset, we came up with the following goal, and I'm going to put a link in the chat, and then I'm also going to share my screen for those of you who aren't able to get to it. So by June 2023, so that gives us 6 months from now, not necessarily 6 months from when we made this goal, but by June 2023, we are planning to conduct an international information gathering effort. So we'll be looking at historical documents, review of what's happened in the past in Kentucky and elsewhere. We'll be looking at the latest research related to assessment and accountability. We'll be learning from what's happening here in Kentucky. We did a little bit of that together when we were at the first Cool Council meeting and we were going to those exhibitors. So looking at the local laboratories of learning and other districts in Kentucky that are doing really interesting work related to assessment and accountability, and understanding generally what are the existing frameworks and models that exist out there for thinking differently about innovation in assessment and accountability. We've all been under the same type of assessment and accountability system for over 20 years now. And so it can be hard to even imagine what would it look like if we did things differently. And so over the next 6 months, our goal that we identified is to go out and learn about different ways of doing this for the purposes of generating a report on what works, what has not worked in terms of innovation and assessment and accountability. We also kind of snuck in a year 2 goal there, or our post June 2023 goal, where we're talking about, okay, we'll use this report then to support determining what our next steps might be in terms of, do we want to do site visits? Do we want to conduct surveys on the field to then help our analysis and ultimately supporting recommendations to the Cool Council about ways that Kentucky might pursue assessment and or accountability differently. So this was our 6-month goal. And now it's our job to figure out, okay, how are we going to get that done? So if you see later on in the document, we have 2 work streams that we've developed. The first work stream is information gathering from within Kentucky, right? Let's look at the past, what was being done before the passage of No Child Left Behind in 2001 in terms of what was happening through assessment and accountability there. Also, what's happening at the local level now. There's some really innovative, interesting things going on in this state and from a local assessment and accountability perspective. And so one of our work streams will be learning within Kentucky. And then you can probably anticipate one of our work streams will be learning beyond Kentucky. What can we learn from other states? What can we learn in international contexts? What exists out there in theory and research that hasn't maybe been enacted at scale yet or in full implementation mode yet? And so we are dividing this up just for the purpose of creating working groups so we can figure out how to work productively today. We've created this template for you to use, but by no means do I want us to feel limited by this template. In particular, we don't expect that every cell will be filled in here. No, it's not reasonable to have an anticipated deliverable for every single month between now and June. But we wanted to put this in here as a way to be thinking about, what are we learning? How are we working together to learn it? Who is working on what, as a way to help each other, help us get some thoughts down on paper about our work over the next 6 months. So what we're going to do is Sarah and Kathy are each going to be facilitating one of the 2 groups. And we'll have almost an hour. So we'll have 50 minutes to really work on this. If we see that you're making great progress, this is the beauty of a Google Doc. If we see, oh, people are really working through this quickly, we'll have time to come back together and talk about it, but we don't want to cut that short if your conversations are being really productive, and we'll figure out a way post-talk to make sure we're reflecting on it and bringing something back to you productive at our next meeting. Jennifer, Sarah, Kathy, am I forgetting anything to tee up this next exercise that would be helpful?
The only thing that I'm seeing is the edit access will need to be open on the document.
All right, so I am going to try and create breakout rooms that allow each of you to choose. I'll label it within Kentucky and beyond Kentucky for each of you to choose. Kathy and Sarah, I'm anticipating you'll go to separate ones and help facilitate. All right, so wish me luck here as I try and figure this out.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks to everyone for the good conversation. I got to be part of the Inside Kentucky discussion, the breakout, and we have some really good steps to move forward and some really good questions that arose. So we were looking forward to that moving forward. So I hope that you did in the Outside Kentucky work group as well. So thanks to everybody's willingness to be a part of that work group. It's going to take us forward with our learning agenda and learning from both inside and outside. The next piece that we wanted to talk through was around the next steps, because as you know, that you just, at least we did in our group, small group, we volunteered to do some work within the next little bit. So we'll leave it up to those leads on those different tasks to reach out to the members that volunteer to be part of that. So thanks to those leaders and working and moving forward that that work group. As far as the chartering process, I think that Kathy Stovall, our chair, is going to reach out to see if there are members that are going to help with moving that along as well. The next thing that we want to do is talk through the meeting cadence and the time frame of which we will work together. We have at our kickoff meeting, we suggested that we meet on a monthly basis, have a virtual meeting such as this monthly. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is talk through the time frame of which to have that. We do have some suggestions for the group to meet, and that is either the first Monday or the first Wednesday of the month. Now, as we are looking for that time frame, we do not have all of our members here that were able to meet this afternoon. So as we move forward, we will have to get their input as well. So you can begin to look at your calendars to see if that's a one of those two are a possibility. And the time frame we wanted to provide, or the options, is from 4 to 6, either the first Monday or the first Wednesday of the month. So you can expect from me a time for a Google or a Drive to vote on the time frame in which that works best for you. So I'll work with Kathy, who is going to follow up with an email, and will provide that, and so we can collaborate on an email together, so that you're not getting multiple emails from multiple different people. So you can look for that as a way to communicate which is your preference. And of course, we understand that everybody's not going to be available every single first Monday or first Wednesday of the month, but just on a regular basis, if you could choose which of those that you would prefer. And again, that we will do that electronically, because we don't have all of our members here this afternoon. So let me pause there and see if there are any other, if you have any questions with where we are at this point with our work, because we've gotten a lot accomplished today. We elected our interim chair. We have worked on our charter, and we've also worked on our 6-month plan. And we will follow up on each of those. So let me pause now to see if there are any overarching or any questions that you have that you just want to have some time frame to talk about before we conclude today.
I had one question that I thought about and then forgot. While we're doing this research, how will we get access to some scholarly articles and things like that?
Good question.
Anytime I've done anything like this, I've been a college student, so it was just right there.
You can email us, Erica, and we can get you access to what you need.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll be able to access anything you need. So just let the chairs know, and they'll get it to the right person. Generally, anything, not books, but scholarly articles that are behind paywall.
Yeah, and actually, Susan, I was just thinking when you were saying this, we might have to negotiate this actually a little bit, given that, there's that whole like fair use kind of consideration of like scholarly articles. And I don't want to sort of publicly say, well, just one of us goes behind the paywall and then distributes that widely, because I think that might get us into hot water. And I will say, actually, in my experience, I always thought that, I came up to the world of going through PsycInfo and other databases as an academic, but actually I'm surprised by how many articles nowadays I can actually access for free, where you don't have to worry about it. And yes, there's still some behind paywalls of journals, but many of them are going to open access. So, and I find that has really changed in the last, I don't know what the number is, but last, let's say 5 years. And so like, if one of us can, get you the behind paywall articles, totally, I'm with you, but let's double check that quickly and see what the policies are.
We'll do some, yeah, we'll figure it out. But just if you want something you can't access, let us know and we'll figure out how to get you access. Also, when it comes to innovation and education, a lot of the stuff is not in the peer-reviewed journals.
Great question, Erica. Thank you for bringing that up.
Should go, by the way, on the FAQ document. Oh, I know we had that. Yeah, should go on the FAQ document and that we have. How do I get access to it? And I don't think that was in there, so I'll add that right now.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Other burning questions that you have? None? Okay, I'm seeing shaking of heads. Well, with that, I will adjourn us today. We will adjourn. And as you all said from the very first, you wanted to start on time and you wanted to end on time. So that's exactly what we're doing. We appreciate very much your attention today, your engagement. It was a great meeting. We got a lot of good progress made. So we thank you very much and look for emails as we reach out for next steps. You guys have a great January and we'll see you back here in February. Stay safe and stay healthy.